Hi, this is Kevin from EFVT, working on user story EFRT 1374, settings, UI, and functionality. While I was doing this user story, I also added a few things off the scope just to make it better. I will also be reviewing that in today's video. Project owner is Dr. Masood Sajjadi, and let's get right on it. Alright, so here we have the registered users page. Here we have the graph. Here's the new toolbar. And you see there's already a few changes right off the bat. Down here there used to be a button for indicators that is no longer here. You can find the indicators in the settings. Here, my data is different than the rest of the group's data. I have much higher data and more data per se. So first little tweak off the scope of the user story that I had to do was editing this the y-axis in order for it to match whatever data that we're given. So you'll see in this video, you'll actually see how this changes depending on what I'm showing and what I'm not showing. Okay, so let's analyze the toolbar real quick. Here we have the time frames. This was already implemented. Just want to show you again that it still works. It's perfectly fine. And up here we have the moving average and volume. We could just toggle that. Click on the moving average. It's going to show the moving average. Click on it again. Moving average is going to disappear. Same thing with the volume. Whenever it loads, there you go, volume's on. Click on it again, volume's off. Quick and simple. So here, when we click on settings, we're going to get a collapse with a few tabs. Here we have the toolbar, indicators, graph settings, and templates. First off is the toolbar. So very simple. We could toggle on and off different things that we want to see on the toolbar. So we clicked on those, apply, now we only see the volume. We click on them again, and they appear again. Easy, quick, simple. On indicators, we have the settings for the moving average and settings for the volume. So enable moving average volume chart. Those are simple. This does the same exact task as these two buttons up here. And here we have the moving average line color. So let's change it to orange. If you recall, I think it was another color. Volume, I remember the color was blue or purple. Let's change it to black. Let's enable moving average. We click apply. And we will get our result whenever the page loads. There you go. So as you can see, we have an orange line, an orange moving average line. Let's change it to, not red, let's change it to yellow. And here we could also change, this is what is the moving average based off. If you hover over any of the charts, you have four different options, four different values: open, high, low, and close, which comes with the candlestick. So here we could take the moving average on any one of those. Right now the default is medium price, so let's go with open. We're gonna click apply, and when it loads, you should see that this is gonna shift a little bit higher. It's gonna look different. And the graph is going to be yellow. So just to show off a little bit, here we could toggle the moving average off, and it will change this in the settings as well. So they are synchronized. If I put the volume on, let's remember that we still haven't seen this. I toggle the volume on, this will turn on, when the page finishes loading, you will see the black volume. Also, other comment, here you could see that the y-axis changed a little bit to encompass all the volume in here. Another project that I had to take, a little side project that I had to do in order to show this accurately was we would kind of run into the problem that the volume would sometimes go over the candlesticks, and obviously this was a problem. So I took it upon myself. I talked to Mateos and we came up with this idea, and I coded it to scale the volume so that the highest volume would not intersect with the lowest value of the candlestick. So this was the result. We scaled it. If you hover over it, you see the true value of the volume. So there are no problems there. Okay. So we toggled it off. And that'll be it. So another feature that I like to show is that the apply button reviews all the settings. It doesn't review only the ones here. So if you want to make multiple changes, you can make the changes and then apply them. Just clicking one apply instead of applying on every tab. So here I'm going to make a change. Let's turn this into white. Let's turn the volume onto white. Let's turn the volume on. And I already turned it into white. So let's make it black. Apply. Now we're going to make it white. We're not going to apply yet. We're just going to leave it there. So here, next tab, we have the graph settings. Here we have the time intervals. It does the same purpose of the beginning, but right now let me just show off the colors. I also have to change the layout and the way this looks a little bit. As you can see, it's much cleaner, much crisp. Here we have little labels next to each one of them, so that after we select after we select a color, you could still know what it is afterwards. So let's turn all the labels orange and foreground orange, and let's make the background blue. So I'm going to make these changes. I'm going to click apply. Remember that we also changed the volume into white. And there all the changes come up. So we're in good standing there. We could also, let me show that the time frames also work. We'll go to 5. Let's click apply. And it's going to load. And there you go. We could always revert back without a problem. Click and apply. So another thing I want you guys to notice, when we change the values here, whenever we change only the colors of the chart, we have no problem. It's quick, it's easy, it loads much faster. Now, if we change the moving average, or if we change the volume, or if we change the time intervals, you see it takes a little bit longer. I also had to rework that in the back end, just so that none of the changes would cause an update data every single time. So for example, to change the color of the chart, quick and easy, shouldn't take a while. And let's make it purple. So there's no problems when we're loading it. It doesn't take forever. Just a color change, quick change. Okay. So now the last tab we have here is the templates tab. This right here is only for visual sake. We do not have this working yet because this would be part of a different user story of save template and load template. Hopefully for next sprint if Dr. Masood approves. So basically, what this page is for, load template, let's say you have a certain setting that you'd like to save for future reference, and next time you log in, of course the default settings are going to be here. But let's say you wanted it, so you just go here, click on the template that you saved, and click load, and then all your settings will be matched to that. Here, in order to load settings, you're going to have to save them. This is where you're saving. So you come here, say new setting, let's say, click save. It'll save it all. It'll take a snapshot of all the settings, save it in the database, and then you should be able to load it over here. Again, this should be implemented in the next sprint, but just so you guys could see, here's how it would look like. And then we click on settings and the collapse falls. And that is it for the front end of the front view. Okay. Now let's go see some of the back-end changes. Okay, so the index page is simple. There's just two sections, one that was edited, one that was added completely new. So in here we have the toolbar, and basically here are the time frames, and then here are the moving average button and the volume button. Now this settings right here is the collapse, and here we have the different tabs. So here's the first one right here, the toolbar settings. And then we have the indicators over here. Here are the graph settings. It's a very long one. And then here we have the template. Again, this one will change in the future. So for any future developer who wants to add a feature or something like that, here you could put it. If you want to add a new tab, here you would add the tab and then create a new div in here and create it. So finally, last thing I want to show you guys is the back end of the script. So I had to rework all of this. If you look at the one previously, it's a very, very big change. I basically made it a lot more readable. I refactored a lot of code, and I added a lot more code in order to get the front working correctly. So first section, you have a couple constants, and you have a few variables. These are all the variables of the actual graph. And over here on the onload, this is where everything's going to be put. We only call evaluate settings. Quick comment on all of this. For any future developers who want to work on this and aren't very good at JavaScript, just like me, this is the first time I dive into this section of coding, this world of coding. And JavaScript supports both asynchronous and synchronous code. So please be very careful when you guys try to modify or tamper with any of this code. And when you're going to add new features, I'm going to show you more or less how to do it, but just be careful with that, okay? So evaluate settings, it's going to basically look at all the settings, look at everything. If there's any change to the previous setting, it's going to note it. So here we have all the colors. If there's a change in just the colors, we just update the chart. We don't have to update the data. If there's a change in the moving average or in the volume or in the time intervals, we have to update the data. We set it to true. Okay. And then down here, quick if and else, update data with a bunch of parameters. For this, we could go with parameters, we could go with global variables. Either way, I kind of left it open for future developers who have a better idea of what would be the best approach. Either way, I put both of them in there just in case for any future settings. or features. So then here, this is just to create chart. This is just the visual aspect of it. So this function right here, create chart, is one of the old functions that was in the original. I kept them mostly the same. I added a few of my own things. I moved things around just to make it prettier and better. I got rid of a lot of magic numbers and you know, created them into actual variables and to make it a lot easier to work on. Here you see some of the code for the y-axis, the scaling depending on what you are, what data we have. Also like to comment that here I have a bunch of comments written throughout this, a few, not a lot, and they're just for future implementation, you know, things we should add just in case. They're not big enough, I think, to be like a full user story, but like little things that we could change here and there as this program progresses and as we get more data and as we work with a lot more complicated things, right? So little fixes that if anyone has time, they could come in and do it really quick. They're not big changes. So here, next function, update chart. Update chart is where we change all the data, per se, all the data that we have to load. Most of this code is Fernando's code. This is from the previous as well, but I have taken a lot of the code out and moved it around and changed it and made it nicer, cleaner to read. And I also separated, I also modularized the code because this used to be a merger between Mateo's and Fernando's code. One would grab data and then do the moving average and also calculate the volume all in the same thing. I separated them. Here, this is where the data is going to be processed and stored. It's going to be stored in graph points. This is the graph points is actually the data that's going to be shown. In here, this is just some calculations that I added just for the y-axis. Over here, in update data, I'm actually calling separate other different functions that will help for the calculation. So the reason why I have to put this in update data is because JavaScript does asynchronous and synchronous code. Usually I was having a lot of problems because whenever I would load a page or something like that, I would do synchronous code. When we're used to asynchronous code in which everything is line after line. So it works asynchronously inside a function. So I would have to put it inside a function, and there's a lot of nesting. It's a little weird, but you guys get the point, and I think it's very straightforward and organized. So the next function, calc moving average. I changed some of the variable names. This is Mateos' code. Changed some of the variable names. I added a little bit, not a lot, and I refactored. I basically put in its own function. Same thing with calc volume. Calc volume, there's a little bit of code that I added as well, just for simply just for the calculation of the y-axis. As you guys notice, the y-axis changed when I added the volume. Here I also added some of the scaling as well, which is very important. Here I have the scaling factor. So basically just changes everything. Here we have the actual volume, so we haven't lost that aspect of the graph. So everything is nice and ordered in here. In here, I added these functions here. Basically, this is for the toolbar, in order to show the toolbar and synchronize the toolbar. Most of the synchronization is done through these functions. They're very small functions, but very important functions. A lot of the synchronization is also in the meat, which is evaluate settings. But if you guys want to create a new feature or see a new feature, my suggestion create a function that that uses everything that this feature does. Pass in any parameters you need. Look at the global variables, so you could grab global variables if you need it. And after that, if it has to do with the data, add it at the end of the update data function right here. Nope. Right here, add it at the end, and all of this should be called up in evaluate settings. So please change the front end first, and then here in evaluate settings, you get to basically follow the same idea. Create a global variable to record the previous. If there's a change from the previous to the current settings, then take a note of it and launch the proper functions. And then finally, is there anything else? No. This is all previous code. This is just some Ajax from the previous code. I had to change this as well. This is the new update chart. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the remodel of the backend. So if you have any questions, you can contact me. I'm Kevin Gonzalez, part of the EFVT team. Here's my email, kgonz224@fiu.edu. If you have any questions about the project itself and not specifically my work, you could go contact the product owner, Dr. Masood Sajjadi. That's Sajjadi at cs.fiu.edu. Have a good day, everyone.